Staying organized in your business helps you to thrive. And a well-run organized business with efficient processes can grow faster and gain success with greater ease. But being organized doesn't come easy for some of us. Some business owners really struggle with it. Today we're in conversation with JoAnn Krall. She's a professional organizer who works with business owners who struggle with organization in their homes, businesses, and life. 16 years ago, she started her company, The Sensible Organizer. But JoAnn tells us she's been helping others to stay organized her whole life. JoAnn, welcome to Small Business Matters.
Thank you for having me.
So, doing something we love is the road to a happy, fulfilling life. What is it about organizing that made you want to pursue it as a profession?
Hmm. Well, I always say I was born organized. I was organized my whole life until I wasn't. So for me, a series of life events, having children, retiring from accounting, having children, and then losing my parents. I lost my parents within weeks of each other. And then, running my own home based businesses, things just, they fell apart. Everything was different. So I had to relearn everything. And once I got myself back on track, I realized that, I could help others because I learned through my process that cookie cutter solutions don't work. I read every book, I tried every process. And as somebody who had been organized, I started to recognize that, these aren't working for me because of this, and this
Yeah,
isn't working for me because of this. And I had to kind of put everything together and piece my own way path forward. And yeah, so I love helping other people do that. It's my favorite thing.
that's awesome. So it's something you're very passionate about, and this came about after a very significant loss in your life. I'm very sorry for your loss. Um,
Thank
this inspired you to were you throwing yourself into business at that point, throwing yourself in as
you.
a distraction, or is it, what was the thing that really triggered that inspiration for the business?
Yeah. So the first business I started when I retired. So I had my first daughter. I wanted to work a flexible schedule back then,
Yeah.
many years ago, over 25 years ago. Um, there just was no flexible schedule. So I just looked at my husband and said, I'm going to leave. And he, he dealt with it, but it all worked out in the end. And so I stayed home with her, but I needed to work. I loved being a mom and being home, but I also needed to do something. So I just started doing direct sales for the Longaberger company, actually, which is a big part of, Longaberger baskets are for, organizing things, right? So I loved that whole aspect. So that really wasn't that. But then I had my second daughter, and, things started getting a little bit more chaotic. And they were only 4 and 2 years old when my parents passed away. So I, the next business I started literally 2 months after they passed away. And I think it was a distraction. And again, that was another direct marketing. It was teaching people, it was creative memories. It was teaching people to scrapbook. So for me, it was about, preserving those memories. So it all kind of tied in emotionally.
Yeah.
So that was a distraction. But, as time went by, I was like, why can't I organize these business? Why can't I organize my house? Why am I so stressed? I didn't see it for what it was because I had always been organized. And I had a breaking point one day. I was trying to get my daughters to a swim lesson, and there was just a mess in my office. There was a mess in my kitchen. There was laundry piling up, and I just was, the moment I dropped them off, I just got in the car and lost it. And then I just set forward and said, all right, I got to pull myself together and I got to figure this out.
Well, I count myself among those who consider themselves a bit disorganized, and
Mm,
for me, it's something I'm a bit ashamed of, to be honest.
mm.
Does shame come up often in how you address organizing with business owners that you work with?
It does. In the real, there is nothing to be ashamed about, but it's hard. I can say that, but people are still going to feel shame. Yeah, people have a lot of shame around it because, just organization, can affect, it affects everything in our lives, right? It can affect our health. It can, if it can affect our businesses if we're disorganized and we don't look professional to people, or, maybe our finances are a mess. Nobody wants to talk about how much debt they have. And, oh, I lost this amount of money doing this, and, I'm not making money because I'm not doing it right. So people do feel a lot of shame around it. And I always say that, we should never be ashamed of it because not everybody is born organized. It can be taught, but it has to be taught properly.
Yeah.
Just because somebody is organized. So, say I had tried to organize people before any of that happened to me, I probably wouldn't have been able to do it because I would have known my way of organizing and I would have taught them that way. And then they would have gone off to try and do it and it wouldn't have worked. Now I have the sense that, okay, now I know why things don't work for people. So it's finding out how, about how the way people, about the way people work, and just trying to make little tweaks and not making this big change in their life and saying, okay, you're doing this. Okay, you've got all this paper. Let's make you all digital. Let's just scan it all in. It's not going to work for everybody.
Mm.
So it's all the lot to it.
Yeah, I scanned all of my stuff a couple of years ago because I had just file cabinets full of paper,
Yeah.
and I haven't looked at it since. Which it could be a good thing,
Yeah.
but and thankfully, what the system that I scanned it into, I did do the indexing. I had
Hmm.
tagged everything pretty much so
Yeah.
it's easy to find.
Yeah.
Um,
So you have
I
that peace
find
of
it's
mind.
it was a freeing exercise for me.
Mhm.
It felt I felt light after I did it. Is
Yeah.
that a common result
Yeah.
of organizing things?
It is. And even myself, when you talk about all the paper, um, right before the pandemic hit, we were thinking about selling our house, and I thought, well, I can't move all. I had a lot of filing cabinets. They were all organized. They were beautifully organized, but they were
Mhm.
filled. And I said, I can't move all of this. What am I going to do? So I spent, because then the pandemic hit, and I had plenty of time to sit there and I shredded. I think I walked away with maybe 20 tall kitchen garbage bags of shredding. That's how much paper. I mean, it stacked and stacked and stacked, and I shredded. I chipped away at this. I didn't do it all at once. Shredded 95% of that paper. I maybe scanned about 2%, and then I have, 3% maybe still in paper, not a lot. It's a good feeling, and knowing what you have, and knowing, for you scanned it all, and yeah, you may never look at it again, but you've got that peace of mind knowing that if I had to, I have it and it's organized. Because
Mhm.
sometimes people will scan it all and they don't organize it, and that can cause a lot of stress, not knowing
Yes.
where things are. Mhm.
So, what are some of the biggest problems small business owners come to you with?
Yeah, so people mostly, especially I work with a lot of people that work for themselves. So whether they're coaches, consultants, small business accountants, or things like that, they, I would say the biggest thing, and this has evolved over my business. It used to be paper, and now it's digital. And then there's that group of people in between that struggle with both. So it's really about information. What information are we keeping? Where are we keeping it? Are we keeping too much? We're not keeping enough. Most of it all revolves around, I'll say, information, because a lot of people who have their own small businesses, we tend to be information hoarders.
Mm.
We hoard all of the classes, we hoard all of the resources, the articles, and things, and we in all different places. So it's a big piece for people.
Yeah, I've actually come a long way in the way that I organize information, particularly now that I work with media. Um, I
Mm,
used to have, video projects that had images off in these other miscellaneous folders and file. My projects would be always, missing a piece of
yeah.
media, and I got this. I watched a really great video on organizing a video catalog, and even photography now. Everything's tagged, face recognized, everything in
Mhm.
Lightroom. Um, my project management, on the other hand, yeah, it could probably use a bit of help. I'm using a project management system called Rike, and it's
Mhm.
multi-layered. It's highly customizable. Um, do you use systems to, when you are organizing things for business owners? That, I mean, there's several. There's Trello and
Mhm.
other systems.
Yeah, and I don't recommend one specific one. For me, it's I because I was talking about this earlier to someone that I used to use Trello for my personal and Asana for my business because I always heard you got to have a project manager system. This is the thing. And I don't know why I picked those two and I don't know why I didn't combine. But I never opened either one of them. And I couldn't tell you why. It probably just, I don't know. I just never thought to. Maybe I didn't
Mm.
enjoy being in there. Maybe, I don't know. It didn't feel right to me. So sometimes it's just a feeling. So, so personally, I use ClickUp now,
Oh,
and it could be because like the colors like you have on the screen here, that's very
yes.
much how ClickUp is. And it just, I don't know, makes me feel good when I go in there. But I also, you know, I also figured out too, the way it's laid out, it just works for my brain. So yes, when I'm working with people, I will oftentimes walk them through different systems and and see what they are saying about it and how they're
Hmm.
feeling. If, sometimes I'll show somebody ClickUp and they'll go, it's like a blank slate and they're like,
Yeah.
no, I don't know what to do. And I'll say, okay, well, maybe, I'll send them off to a friend of mine and who has a YouTube channel and say, watch a little bit of it. And
Yeah.
then if you still feel that way, okay, we'll move on to the next one. I never want people taking all of their stuff and putting it into a project management system, taking all the time, putting it in because someone said, you got to use Monday.com or you have to use ClickUp, because that's just a waste of time. So sometimes it'll be just like, hey, let's pick a small project. You're doing a live stream next week. What are your steps? Let's put the steps into a project management system because they all have free trials. Put it in there and see how it feels. And did you use it? And did you like it? Sometimes it is a matter of trial and error, because we all work differently, because even within the project management systems, you've got the different layouts, you've got the Kanban board, you've got calendar view, list view,
Yes. Yeah.
everybody has
For
their
me,
own.
it's anything to get away from having lots of spreadsheets all over my hard drive.
Yes.
One central place that I can go to,
Hmm.
one source of truth about, I mean, content. That's my primary
Yeah.
function here at
Yeah.
Experian. So that's where I can go and I can see the timelines. I can see which
Hmm.
projects are off track, on track. So
Yeah.
it's been helpful, but I think I could be maybe more of a power user. So,
Yeah. And you
g-
know, sometimes it's, you have to just look for those downtimes of, to really, and not just change everything, just really think about how I always tell people evaluate everything, from the moment you get to your desk. Did you look at your project management system? No. Why? You know what I mean? What it's all that. Why aren't you?
yeah,
What are you doing first? Maybe they're writing a list. And so that tells me something about their brain, that pen and paper and writing down that list is a part of their process.
yeah, perfect. So we're just starting to emerge from this 2+ year pandemic.
Yep.
Was it a time to reorganize for the business owners you work with?
Mm.
And how did your business change during COVID?
Yeah. Actually, you would think it would have been a time for my clients to organize. Um, it was anything but that. Most people, well, a lot of people. So I do work with a lot of people who work from home, and they were functioning wonderful working from home prior to the pandemic. And many, like myself, the pandemic threw that all off because now they weren't working at home alone. They had a spouse home, they had children home. So that really, really threw a wrench in a lot of people's, businesses and plans. Um, and then the people that were working outside of an office were now working at home, and they weren't used to it. So, there was a lot of adjustment that went on during that period. People used to say, oh, you must be thriving during this pandemic with everybody with more time. And it's not true, because it's the reason people are disorganized is not because of, usually not because of the amount of time they have. It's there's something else. There's another reason why they're disorganized. So the people that we saw getting, oh, look at, I'm getting all of this organized, they're already organized. They're just, tweaking things and making things, look nicer, or, they're doing a little bit of adjustments here and there. They weren't, or maybe they were overhauling a closet because they didn't, for them it was about time. They're already organized, they just didn't have time to get to like their closet, or their, if they're at home, or they didn't have time to get to their files or their digital files. But now they did have time, but they already had the skills, so those wouldn't be my clients. If somebody already has the skills to get organized. And then personally for me, that translates all to me. I, right before the pandemic, I was doing great, and I did have a good amount of members in a group coaching program right when everything hit. And so, I was able to take them through it. So it was great. They were already in the mindset to get organized. They weren't, it wasn't like, the pandemic hit and then threw them off. They were already ready, so they were committed, and we worked through it. And I'm seeing, even not just now, but before, I'm starting to see people climb out of that now. They're ready. They're like, well, this is my new life. I'm working from home. Everybody's home. I can't just, I can't put it off any longer. So they're starting to try to figure out, because it is a challenge for people, who have worked in an office to now work at home, or worked at home and now have other people around. There's that whole adjustment.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you say to business owners who feel overwhelmed at the thought of organizing their business? Why do we
Mm.
feel overwhelmed around this topic?
There's many reasons. One being people have tried over and over, and I air quotes failed. I don't see any failure. I just see lessons. Trial and error is one way to go, right? There's one, you just try something, it doesn't work, you move on to the next thing. You try something, you move on, go on to the next thing.
Yeah.
That can get really tiring over time, especially if you're never finding that one thing. Because sometimes, like I said, somebody's picking a cookie cutter solution, and then they're picking another cookie cutter solution and another one. Not one of those will work as they are. You need to pull pieces. So it's understanding that. So that's a big overwhelm, knowing that we just, businesses, they just have too much stuff. It goes back to the information hoarding.
Yeah.
Like, whether it's in paper or digital form, it's just overwhelming. You just look at it and you go, oh, I don't know where to start. You open up your laptop and you have, not you, someone has, just a sea of files on their desktop, because that's where they put files when they do stuff. Or they look into their download folder and there's, 1,000 photos, or 1,000 photos, or 1,000 files. And they're like, I don't know what to do. And then they get thrown off by, well, I've got all these on my computer, and then I've got a Dropbox over here, and I've got Google Drive over here, and I've got Google Photos, and I've got,
Mm-hmm.
it's just, there's stuff everywhere, and they feel, they in their brain, they know, well, there's versions of that there, I don't know which version, so it's because a lot of times when we're working on the fly, we just quickly go and do stuff, and we may not rename things, or
Mm-hmm.
we may not put them where they need to go. So it adds up, because it's not physically, it's easy to just shut the laptop,
Yeah.
and,
Well,
there's no mess, but
it
it
can,
is a mess.
it can add up in terms of losses for the building, for the business. Robert Irvine,
Mhm.
his wonderful show, I think it's Restaurant Impossible. One of the things that he really zeroes in on is the menu. And
Yeah.
so many of these stories are restaurateurs that have these menus that have just got too many items, and they have
Hmm.
to keep that covered, in terms of
Yeah.
inventory, and
Yeah.
then the spoilage. So he really zeroes in on optimizing the
Hmm.
menu,
Yeah.
and really frees a lot of these businesses once they realize, and they
Yeah.
learn how to price the recipes properly and buy the right levels of inventory, even putting POS systems in,
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
upgrading those
Yeah.
can really take a business, to the next level.
Yeah. It's about streamlining, and like you're talking about a menu, like when you're using something, thinking about how else it could be used and making sure that, yeah, you're just reducing what you have coming in for sure is huge.
So tell us about an entrepreneur you worked with who made progress in their business after organizing with your company.
Yeah, I'll use a client of mine who actually they have a family business. They actually have an orchard, and so she came to me because she had an overwhelming amount of paperwork, and so it was from personal stuff, but she wanted so desperately to work in the business, and she was self-diagnosed like yourself. She's like, I'm disorganized, and her whole family was like, yes, we agree. you know so so she came to me, and we were actually dealing with some personal paperwork from estate stuff that had gone on, but
Hmm.
also like her day-to-day stuff for herself. And we started with that, and she had the huge breakthrough of letting go of the hard stuff, the emotional stuff, getting herself into an organized routine, because she was somebody who was a former teacher and she was organized in her classroom, but she couldn't figure out how to do it in this at home, and with her personal stuff. So we got all that organized, and now she does all of the marketing for the orchard. They're like,
Oh,
yeah,
wonderful.
you're organized and you can get it done. So yeah, like she's one of my favorite examples because she just lights up and she's just so like, and even when she gets like something thrown at her, because she did have a lot of stuff thrown on her during the pandemic, illnesses and baby or grandchildren being born. She was able to just go, okay, I know how to get back on track, because that's part of it. Organizing isn't one and done. You know, you can get to a place where you're organized and then be thrown off track by something and then have to, kind of put it all back together. But the important thing is knowing, the steps to do that.
Yeah. Any closing thoughts on staying organized in your business?
Yeah. It's so important, not only for our stress levels, but for financially, and that goes on two ends, right? We are either saving money or we're making more money. So being organized is definitely going to save you money. That goes back to your restaurant thing of not having a lot of, for them, like bringing in, um, too many ingredients and throwing them away. If we could even look at it to like, softwares that we have, getting, what subscriptions are you paying with? If you don't know what money is going out, and what it's going to, and if you're using it or not, or when it's up, because sometimes we'll be like, well, I haven't used that, but oh, they just charged me for it. And then you're like, I don't know where to find the information to stop it. So there's that part of saving money, but then being more profitable. I mean, for people who are billing clients, if you're organized and you're working with clients and they see you as organized and professional, it's going to make them want to, continue to work with you. And some people may be like, no, you're just too all over the place. You could be the best organizer in the world. I can't, that's probably a bad example, but you could be the best at helping people get organized. But if you yourself are not organized and you're missing appointments or you're missing deadlines, that's going to cost you money in the long run. So I'd say it comes down to time and money, because time is money, right?
Amen. Amen.
Mhm.
Well, JoAnn, this has been so helpful. Tell our listeners how they can learn more about the Sensible Organizer and how to start a conversation with you.
Yes, you can just head to my website. It's JoAnn Krall, and it's JoAnn Noe.com. And everything about me, you can find everything about me there. All the socials. I'm pretty much on all the socials as JoAnn Krall. So I'm happy to connect with people on any of them, whichever one they prefer.
Awesome stuff. Thanks so much for coming on Small Business Matters today.
Thank you.